Hello there, Rabbi. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, Joe. What's happening at your end?
Well, I'm admiring your collection of telephone booths. The cell phone may be the end of the phone booth, but it's at the end of outdoor shelters. And that is my clever way of leading into the festival of Sukkot. What is it about Sukkot? We know it's a harvest festival. Everybody dances around and has a party, and we have we have a shelter, and we know the story of Sukkot, which may or may not be of interest to people who've never heard it before. But it's an old custom, and old customs tend to evolve over time, especially in this country, and especially when you go from an orthodox or conservative to a reform observance of religion. Are we keeping the good parts or keeping the bad parts? Are we losing the wrong thing? Are we taking the wrong meaning when we celebrate today, when we build a sukkah?
Those are neat questions. One of the reasons I picked this background is Sukkot is called the Festival of Booths. And when I hear the word booth, I think of a telephone booth. I don't think of a structure with a thatched roof that you stay in while you're harvesting the lower 40. So I thought it was appropriate to discuss booths today in the holiday, which is referred to as the Festival of Booths. The word sukkah is Hebrew for booth. One of the things that we're watching happening, Joe, it's a lot more fun to build the sukkah than it is to sit back and say, why am I doing this? What does it represent? We become very much involved in how high 2.5 walls have to be not permanent. So it can't be a permanent structure. It can't be more than 20 feet high, and there's a minimum of 2 feet by 2 feet. You'll have to look up to see if those are the real dimensions, because I don't care. Because I think that's the problem, is we're so concerned with fulfilling the ritual that we totally ignore why we're doing the ritual. And it's fascinating when you said about modern Judaism or reform, this problem isn't new. It's not reform, conservative, orthodox, reconstructionist, renewal. The Hebrew prophets, the biblical prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, etc., kept going before the people, and they all said the same thing. God does not want a river of blood. God does not want sacrifices. God is not going to pay attention to you observing the holidays because you're not following God's teachings. And so very early on, the prophets realized that human beings are fascinated with, oh, where do I put my mezuzah? Or, gee, did I get rid of all the chametz for Passover? And they said, forget that. They even say that. God does not want you to follow the rituals. Why? Because you're not doing what God requested. You're not taking care of the orphan. You're not taking care of the widow. You're not taking care of the homeless. You're not taking care of the veteran. Build a booth. Build a booth. Go in a telephone booth. It doesn't do any good, as the prophet pointed out, if in your everyday life you're mean to other people, if you don't listen to other people, if you pass laws that only benefit your group, if you're xenophobic, doesn't matter what your sukkah looks like.
What words of advice and inspiration can you give at that point?
Why are we building the sukkah? Why are we sitting in it? Let's not focus on, is it high enough? Is it big enough? Does it have straw on the floor? Let's not focus on that. Let's focus on, are we collecting food for the food bank? Are we collecting clothes for the shelters? Are we supporting organizations and political parties that are supporting the homeless, those that are challenged physically, emotionally, and mentally? That's what we want to look at, because the goal of staying in the sukkah is humility, is to thank God, hey, I'm doing great. I don't need any of this. I'm doing good. So now, how do I help other people? How do I make sure that we have a society that is not just equal, but is compensating so everyone gets a fair chance? We have plenty of money. We have plenty of everything in our country. It's just that our priorities are a little bit skewed. So the holiday of Sukkot, as the prophets taught, is to get our priorities in line with God's. I'm not making, it's not me. I don't care what you do. It's not for my sake. God said it. How did he say it? Through the biblical prophets.
Well, thank you very much, Rabbi. I know I'm inspired to do a little bit more than just build a makeshift shelter, and I hope the rest of our viewers are going to do the same.
And I'd like everyone to take a look at how you spend your free time, how much you volunteer, and how much you do things just for yourself and your family, and just add something of God's teaching for someone else, because that's what the sukkah is all about.